Hi, this is Misha, and since there continues to be some interest and in my music library, I am now going to go through a band that I really was into during the 90s and early 2000s, 9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor's band. You don't hear much about him today. He's, become a father. He still puts out work. He does a lot of soundtrack work these days. But I happen to be pretty much at the right age for his type of music. And one thing I liked about him over a lot of the other kind of angsty teenage band type things was he was a true musician. Yes, he did a lot of industrial. He even pioneered a lot of the industrial techniques. But he also played piano, and I'm a big sucker for strings and other instruments, so he was pretty diverse, and his sound changed. Now, a lot of this had to do with the fact that he only released albums every few years. He was actually quite slow to release them, so it built up anticipation, and there wasn't that overboard. And a lot of it was because he was a perfectionist, or is a perfectionist still. So much like with the Smashing Pumpkins directory I went through, I have this divided up into subdirectories. The first titled Major Albums. And I'll more or less go through these chronologically because there's not that many. I have Pretty Hate Machine. And then of course I have the Pretty Hate Machine remastered that came out some years ago. Now Pretty Hate Machine was his first published album in '89. And one I really enjoyed. I mean, it only had a few songs on it, frankly. 10, and of those 10, I pretty much enjoyed them all. I would say Terrible Lie, Something I Can Never Have, and to some extent, Sin. And That's What I Get would be kind of my favorites, but there's really none on here that I didn't enjoy at the time when this came out. I didn't pick it up at the exact time. I was a bit young for this kind of music when it came out in '89, but I picked it out a couple of years later in the early '90s. And the remastered edition has one bonus track, Get Down, Make Love, which is a cover of a Queen song, which was previously a B-side. Next up, we have an EP, an extended play, Broken, which came out in '92. So 3 years and you get an extended play. Now, normally, if this was a full-length album, I may not have enjoyed it so much because it is very loud, very brash, but I enjoyed it because A, it is an EP with really... Well, here's the thing. It has a total of 8 tracks, but 2 are bonus tracks at the end, or in the case of my disc that I purchased, they came on a separate little mini CD, the little small CDs, which were kind of originally thought of as singles, but didn't really pan out. Anyway, those were Physical and Suck. Well, Physical is a cover. Suck has become a very popular song at live performances. So then the base album just has 6 tracks, but of those, 2 of them are short instrumentals. So the 4 remaining are Wish, Last, Happiness and Slavery, and Gave Up. And those are all solid songs for that loud metal kind of thing. But yeah, I think a lot of it too is it came out at the right time. I was just in that teenage phase when loud music was very appealing to me, mostly because it wasn't always appealing to some around me. So yeah, and of course it had vulgarity and stuff in it, which was quite a novelty in the 90s still. Moving on, we have probably the quintessential Downward Spiral. I have the deluxe edition. I have the original disc I purchased briefly. It came out in '94. I didn't purchase it immediately. I probably picked it up in '95, but I have that. But then I have the remastered. You have the remastered disc itself, and then a bonus disc that has some songs from soundtracks like Burn, Dead Souls, which is a cover of a Joy Division song, quite popular, and it's been played live. There's Hurt Quiet, which to me sounds like Hurt. There's not a major difference. And then we have a couple of demo songs, which is really what I liked about this disc. You have Ruiner, and you have a demo of Reptile called Liar. And then you have Heresy demo version, which is probably my favorite of the 3 demos included here. You don't get a lot of demos from 9 Inch Nails, so that was kind of nice. And now, really, we have to skip forward again to 1999. Now, there was work that he did in the interim, songs here and there, but his next full album was The Fragile, which was a double disc. I'm going to cover it later in its own episode because, frankly, it's my favorite Nails album. I know a lot of people like Downward Spiral. I just enjoyed Fragile. I thought it was more mature, and I really liked the ambiance to it. And again, a lot of strings and piano, so I'll talk about that. Starfuckers is not really, it's what it's supposed to be. It's a outrageous, catchy, vulgar single, but there are some awesome songs on Fragile. I mean, the eponymous track Fragile itself is great, but then The Day the World Went Away, We're in This Together Now, which was probably the first single I heard from this before it was released. It was the summer of '99, yeah, late summer. And what you have after this is basically Reznor went on hiatus. He went through some personal things. You do have And All That Could Have Been, which was a live album released. And then with it, at least on some editions, there was Still, which I really like. It's a collection of kind of B-sides, bonus material, all that. It's got an interesting demo of The Fragile on it. But really the best song is number 7, which is, well, And All That Could Have Been. It's a very haunting, very melancholic, very sincere. It's depressed, but in the good way. It's very, I really enjoyed it. It's probably the song I've listened to by far the most off this Still EP. The next we heard from Reznor was With Teeth. It was kind of his comeback in 2005. It was, again, a change in sound. Not quite as much to my liking as The Fragile, but I still enjoyed it. I mean, The Hand That Feeds was kind of the launch single, and it's not bad. I really liked Every Day Is Exactly the Same off this one. Only is also a good single that came out. And so on. Also, some of the later songs, some of the quieter songs I really enjoy. And this edition I have has a couple of bonus songs. Home comes to mind as one of the add-on songs. It was a foreign release edition, and I like that bonus song quite a bit too. There's also some different versions of other songs on here. Next up, we have Year Zero, which was a concept album. And it has a very unique sound. Had a song, you know, kind of flow, story behind it. Survivalism was a single off of it. It's one of those that, yeah, they're singles, but probably better taken as a complete album. Back when people used to listen to albums from beginning to end, that's how it was intended to be listened to. You know, a good high concept, and there was a lot of tie-in media with it at the time. I also have the Ghosts series. I did buy the physical media. There are 4 discs, or excuse me, 4 records or 2 discs. These are all instrumentals collected together. It came out at the same time as Ghost. We have The Slip, which was available free online just like Ghost, but these are actual songs with vocals and such. It's 10 songs. They're a little more disjointed. You know, there's kind of a compilation, but again, it was available free, and I like it. It's a little more raw, a little more natural, kind of harkened back a bit to earlier Nails, more of a home studio vibe. Really, none of the songs just stands out as excellent, but they all seemed quite good. I also have a folder in here called Songs from Soundtracks. You can guess what that is. Nails has contributed quite a bit. And then I have a rip of the Quake soundtrack on here. As most everyone knows, Reznor did the Quake soundtrack back in 95, 96. And next I have his 2013 album, Hesitation Marks. Being a newer album, it's not one I've listened to as much, although I've probably gone through it a couple of dozen times. But I can't really say that I have a song that I really like about it. I do remember enjoying Satellite quite a bit. But it's not one when I find myself going through my songs that I go to. I usually go to the older stuff. Again, mostly Fragile. And then I have one of the newer EPs, Not the Actual Events, in here. Next up, I've got a folder called Unreleased and Live. Now, these are most, if not all, bootlegs. I've got concerts from, you know, 89 all the way up through the early 2000s. A couple of long ones. I've got one here. It's an early concert called Missile Twister. Yeah, because reasons, I don't know. I've also got Woodstock 94, a recording of Nails' performance there. Probably the most interesting, I've got Purest Feeling, which was the original demo tape that Reznor did in 88. And I would say what stands out to me is Maybe Once or Maybe Just Once. And there's a couple of other songs that did not really ever appear, once or twice played live, and that was it. I would have liked it if they'd included some of these on the remastered version of Pretty Hate Machine, but it didn't happen. And then I have Purest Feeling 2, which is more live than it is demos, but there are a couple of rare songs on here, such as Supernaut. I have a live album called Scary Monsters, which is a show that Reznor and Bowie did together. And that's because they were touring together and they helped each other out. Reznor helped Bowie with Outsider, and Bowie helped Reznor by being awesome. Next, I have remix albums. A lot of these, since this is, you know, Nine Inch Nails is electronic industrial, remixes were very popular. I've got, and of course a lot of these are the singles, because a lot of the Nails singles had remixes on them more than B-sides. For example, I've got Closer, Part 1 and Part 2, which were two singles. Kind of neat, because the first one, Part 1, came in a double disc case, but only had the Part 1 disc in it, and you had to go out and buy Part 2, which came in just a slim jewel case. But it really confused the hell out of me when I first got it, because I opened it up and one spot was empty, and I was like, what? Huh? Is something missing? But and again, remember, guys, this was really before the internet was a thing. I mean, there was an internet in '95, but it's not like today. I also have the single here for Every Day is Exactly the Same. Like I said, I enjoyed that song from With Teeth, and it's got some remixes, quite a few honestly, but no real new material. I have Fixed, which was the remix album of Broken, which was a tradition that Nails would keep on doing. They would put out an album and then a remix album a year later. I believe Fixed came out in '93, might have been '94. Next up, I've got Further Down the Spiral, which was the remix album for Downward Spiral. There's actually two versions, the US and the international, and I have both here. What I did, since the international has some songs that the US does not, I combined them. I took the songs, I have both discs, but I took the songs and just combined them into one folder and took out the duplicates, save on some space, and no reason to have duplicates. I have the Head Like a Hole, single. Basically, this has 10 remixes. It does have a demo called Down in It, so there's that, but everything else is pretty much remixes. Since there was never a remix album for Pretty Hate Machine, pretty much you have it with the singles. I have the March of the Pigs single here. It has some unique songs on it, but a lot of them ended up on the remaster of Downward Spiral later on. And then I have the Only single. It has a demo version of Love Is Not Enough, so that's kind of neat. And then it has a remix of Hand That Feeds. It's a short one, only 3 tracks on the Only demo. I think I found that at a Hastings. Then there's a Sin demo, which I remember finding at a Best Buy. It has, let's see. Yeah, it's got a long version of Sin. It's got a dub version of Sin. It has Get Down and Make Love. This is originally where it appeared. And then it has a short version of Sin. So you've got 3 remixes or 3 alternate versions, and then the Get Down, Make Love B-side. Then I have the Survivalism single, which if memory serves was actually 2 separate. No, must have just been 2. Maybe there was 2 and I only got 1. I'm only seeing 1 here. You've got Survivalism, a remix of it, and then you have an instrumental version of The Greater Good. Then you have the Hand That Feeds single. Which has 3 versions of The Hand That Feeds, so a shorter one. Now we got the Perfect Drug mixes, which was kind of an EP. Perfect Drug came out on the Lost Highway soundtrack. Now, interestingly, you have 4 versions of Perfect Drug on here, but not the original. So you actually have 4 remixes. Honestly, I like the original more. And I do have an extended version of Perfect Drug that I don't remember what it came off of right now, but it came off of something I had. Next up, we have Things Falling Apart, which was the remix album for Fragile. Honestly, this was kind of disappointing. I didn't care for it much. It's got a lot of versions of Starfuckers. It does have Metal, which is a Gary Newman cover, and I really enjoy Gary Newman. I'll do a video on him one day. It has 10 Miles High, which is an interesting B-side, originally on the We're In This Together Now, I believe. We'll get there in a minute. Yeah, I mean, it only has 10 songs, and I think at least 3 are Starfuckers. It just kind of seemed considering how large Fragile was. Yeah, here, next up is the We're In This Together. It's actually a 3-disc set. Total... Yeah, this is where the Perfect Drug Extended came from, was the We're In This Together series of 3 singles. You have 10 Miles High, which was a cut track. Actually, a tiny bit of it is on the Fragile, and it's on the vinyl version, but it's not on the CD version, except for that tiny intro. But here's the full 10 Miles High. You also have a song called The New Flesh B-side. Then you have another version of The Day the World Went Away, and since I really enjoy that song, I was happy to get it. Another The Day the World Went Away. You have a remix of The New Flesh called Complications of the Flesh. And then, like I said, you have the extended Perfect Drug. And again, these were kind of all spread out over 3 discs, all with the We're In This Together at the beginning. And now we have the remix version of Year Zero, which is not really a pronounceable name. And aside from a couple of tribute albums that I've got in their own folder, yeah, I've got like Covered in Nails 1 and 2, a Gothic Tribute, a piano tribute, which is actually kind of nice. And then I've got a string quartet tribute. So, and then I've got one called Absence of Faith. So I've got a number of tribute. And that pretty much gets us through the 9 Inch Nails folder. Again, I'll probably do individual videos on the Fragile, maybe a couple of others that I really enjoy. But, yeah, I hope that was a good, walkthrough. A band that I was very much into once upon a time. So, yeah, if you enjoyed Nails, do share your own stories. We'd love to hear them. And I'll keep doing these if you keep watching these. Appreciate you tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And if you haven't, do check out our main channel. This is Misha. We'll catch you next time.